Hi, my name is Mazala Bayev, and this is a simulated implementation of curriculum-based dynamic assessment, which I am doing for my Touro College class, EDSN 640 for Professor Skuy. So, after reviewing Avi's performance on the Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence in both English and Hebrew, and his current progress in class, I created a teacher-made test to formally assess his abilities. This test had 3 sections. One was for letter recognition, where Avi was asked to identify the letters, he was asked to write the letters, and sound them out in English. And another section was picture and object identification. There was pictures, and he was asked to identify what those pictures were showing, what the names of the objects in those pictures were. And the third section was reading and writing 2 to 3 letter words, as well as reading a short story. And the results of the pretest indicated that Avi mainly struggled with object naming, which was presented in the object identification part of the test. However, in the section where he had to identify the letters of the alphabet and sound them out, he did pretty well. Only he had issues with the letters H, W, and U, and because of that, he struggled with reading the words that had those letters in them, for example, hug and win. The focus of my lesson was for the student to be able to identify 5 classroom objects, identify and name them. I didn't want to do more than 5 because I was afraid that I would be overwhelming him, and I thought that 5 was just the right amount so that he would be able to take it in, internalize it, and remember it. And this lesson will help him build his language skills in addition to helping him describe the things that are in his environment. And the student will be able to identify 5 classroom objects and use that knowledge to describe his classroom environment in the future. Students will be able to generalize the knowledge of those objects in other settings. So if he's somewhere else and he sees a table, for example, even though it's not in his classroom, he'll know that this is a table and he'll be able to name it. This lesson is based on the principle of dynamic assessment, which is found on Lev Vygotsky's notion of the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is pretty much the range between how much the student knows now and the potential of what the student can learn with adult mediation. So the pretest provided me with the information about Avi's current abilities and what he knows now, and it helps him pinpoint which areas he needs mediation with. So the intervention will allow me to help Avi to reach his ceiling of zone of proximal development regarding specifically the targeted goal of naming classroom objects. But the vocabulary that he will learn in this lesson is table, chair, clock, computer, and school bag. This is going to be a private lesson involving myself and Avi, and there will be no peer interaction in this specific lesson. However, the knowledge that he gains from this will provide the student with language skills that he can use later to be able to communicate with students and interact nicely. And before I do that lesson, I did a brief review of the letters H, W, and U, as I mentioned previously, and I used the Letter People program, which is part of our curriculum, and that involves using the Letter People puppets and songbooks with songs that come with it. And each song has several words that start with the letter which we are using, specifically H, W, and U. But this was not my main objective, so I didn't want to spend too much time on it, and he grasped letters and letter sound knowledge pretty quickly, so I was satisfied with our lesson. So to introduce the subject of naming objects, we did a lesson plan which was based around a 40-minute to an hour session, and the mediation will begin with the introduction of the object names. I will explain to Avi why it's important to use specific names. That way people can understand you more clearly. You can express yourself more clearly when you use the actual name of the object instead of just describing it, and people can misunderstand it. And it helps in communication. And I will introduce the names by using flashcards. For example, chair, table, school bag, and so on. And when I hold up the flashcard, I'll say, Avi, what is this? This is a school bag. And I'll say, can you say school bag? And he'll repeat to me, school bag. Very good. And I'll continue, Avi, what is this? Do you know what this is? This is a computer. Can you say computer? And so on and so forth. Clock, and I go on with that. After he's had a good introduction to these object names, I thought it would be fun and more engaging for Avi to play games instead of just instruction and memorization, because this way he's actively involved and he's using the names, and it will help him to internalize better when it's done in a fun way. So one of the games that I wanted to play with him is I Spy. And with I Spy, I would provide clues for him, and then he has to try to figure out what the name of that object is, what object it is. For example, I could say something like, I spy something with 4 legs and a flat top. And when the student guesses the object, I'll have him repeat the name. For example, yes, I spied a table. What did I spy? And he should say a table. After we finish that game with all the 5 objects, I'll go on to playing What's Missing. And the way you play that game is I lay out all the flashcards on the table. I'll repeat the name of each object as I lay it out on the table. I'll have him look it over carefully, and then I'll ask him to close his eyes, and he'll cover his eyes, and I'll take away one of the cards, one of the flashcards, and he'll have to open his eyes and try to figure out which card is missing. And by doing so, he'll have to think about the names of the object in order to tell me which one is missing. After we finish that game, we'll play one more game, which is called Touch the Object. And the way it goes is that I'll say the name of the object without showing him the flashcard. And he'll have to go around the classroom and touch that object. So for example, if I say chair, he'll go and touch the chair. After which I will ask him to assess himself. I think it's important that he assesses himself because it helps him realize that he's in charge of his own knowledge, and he will learn to understand how well he is knowing what he's being taught. It's a picture of the object, and next to it is different kinds of faces. It's a happy face, a somewhat happy face, neutral face, and sad faces. And according to how well he thinks he knows it, he'll circle it if he knows it. After which, I will provide him also with my own review sheet, which will have pictures that he can color of the 5 objects, and on the other side we'll have the words written out, and he'll be asked to match the word to the object. And if he needs help reading the words, I'll be there to read it for him. And it looks like this. I'll continue these lessons for 5 days using adding different object names to each lesson. For example, this one we did table, chair, clock, computer, and school bag. In the next lesson, I could do pencil, crayons, glue, etc. So by the end of 5 days, he'll be very familiar with the majority of classroom objects. And after those intervention sessions are over, I'll use dynamic assessment to evaluate my student. And this started with the pre-test, continued with my intervention, and after which I'm going to do a post-test. Post-test will formally assess how the intervention worked. Before the post-test, I actually informally assess my student by just observing him, taking mental notes, looking at the review sheet, and finally the post-test. Now the post-test is very similar to the pre-test in format. Like the pre-test, it requires Avi to identify the alphabetical letters and sounds, and Avi will be asked to read several words, specifically using the letters H, W, and U, because those are the ones that he struggled with and the ones that we kind of reviewed during our intervention. Now, besides for that, there's also going to be the section where he has to identify pictures. Now, those pictures in the post-test are specifically targeted and narrowed down towards classroom objects, because this is what we reviewed, and my goal is to see if our intervention worked or not. Now, the results of the test showed that Avi, after short mediation, using the classroom letter people program, was now able to identify all the letters, H, W, and U, and their sounds. And he was also able to read most of the words with those letters in them. In the picture identification portion of the post-test, the pictures, again, were narrowed down to classroom objects, and the result of the intervention strategies proved to be successful. The method that I used with the games and the playfulness was not overwhelming for him. He was taking it in, he was enjoying it, and the post-test showed that it was a good way to do it because he was able to name all the objects easily. Dynamic assessment showed to me that he was able to absorb the information that was given to him through the intervention, and it allowed me to know that for future interventions, there should be lots of visual prompts like I provided with flashcards, or like I provided with actual objects when I asked him to play the touch the object game, where he would actually look at the object, touch the object. These visual prompts, combined with speaking the words out loud, clearly, succinctly, should be incorporated into the entire curriculum, not just with these interventions. In addition, Avi can use more practice with letter sound recognition and combination of letter sounds, just to help him solidify and to help develop his phonemic awareness. This one-on-one sessions, the 40-minute to an hour sessions, are excellent work for him as well. He doesn't have the pressure of the other classmates watching him as he's learning. He doesn't have to feel self-conscious about it. So I will continue these 40-minute sessions one-on-one so that he can have this time to really absorb all the information he's being given.